And if one person buys this book because of this podcast, we will have achieved what we set out to do.
We're done.
We can just go home now.
We can go home now.
It's not widely known. Sorry. And it should be.
Did you just move Hilary to one side? I saw you do that. Ouch, that's brutal. That's brutal. I'm so sorry, Hilary. I'm sorry she did that.
Hello and welcome to the Bibliophiles podcast. I'm Chaya.
And I am Sophie.
And I feel like Sophie has been gearing up to this episode her entire life. She has been running those marathons, and this is it for you. This is the final frontier.
It is. This is the best books that no one's talking about.
Because you thrive on an undiscovered gem. And actually,
You always say this.
But I feel so passionate about these books, and I would beseech everyone to sit back with a nice cup of adaptogenic coffee or tea or a vodka. Let's be honest, we all need a gin and tonic or a vodka.
We do today.
Because these are the books that I wish had millions upon millions of pounds worth of marketing spend. I wish there had been banners of these books in Leicester Square. They are so phenomenal, and we have a wide range. There is something for every reader. And these are the books. Some of them have like 100 reviews on Goodreads. It is a travesty.
I would say, though, that when it comes to these books, though I wish some of them were more well known, I actually get so much joy from recommending these books that people have never heard about, because it's just so wonderful to see someone read one of these much more than any hyped book and come back and say, gosh, that was incredible, and I'd never even heard of it. You kind of feel that you're doing a service to the book and to the reader. And I just don't think you can get that from shouting out about a book that is massively hyped.
Agreed. Entirely agreed. There's so many that we have to talk about, and we've actually carefully demarcated them into categories. So we've got a few from the most well-known authors and their backlist that no one looks at. We've got some quiet contemporary masterpieces. We've got some mind-blowing, I repeat, mind-blowing nonfiction.
Mind-blowing.
No, I'm sorry.
Do you want to repeat it again?
There is a title that we are going to talk about, which is nonfiction, which I think has changed the world for women. Every person that has read that book that I have recommended it to has come back and said, you have changed my understanding of violence against women, or the role of a victim, or how the media perceives women and men. These are books that I would, I say I wish I could hand them out to millions of people, but I would stand by that book forever.
Consider this our service to you, because I think you'd be hard pressed to come away from this podcast and pick up one of these books and not be, quite frankly, blown away. I genuinely believe that.
We stand by every single one of these books. I mean, these are books we accept no criticism on.
None at all. Ever.
Underrated gems we accept no criticism on.
There we go.
I love how Sophie thinks about the first category.
Okay, let me just backtrack. So I love an undiscovered gem, as Chaya has said. And the way I've always tended to find them is, if I read a book by an author, what I love to do is comb through their backlist. It's something that I think I've done from when I was a child. I'd read a brilliant book and I'd think, okay, where can I get another brilliant book? Probably the same person's written some other brilliant books. I just may not know about them yet. So I love looking through a backlist. And I was explaining this process to Chaya, and I said, these books, these backlists titles are kind of like siblings of a famous person. They're a bit like, I don't know, the Jamie Lynn Spears of Britney, or her brother. He's so unfamous, I don't even know his name.
Which harkens back to your obsession with Britney Spears, my beloved Pulitzer Prize.
I'm worried about her at the moment. I am really worried about her at the moment. Free Britney, but I'm worried.
Can we do an entire episode on Britney Spears and how she has been contained and the legal ramifications of what's been going on in America? I think that'd be so interesting.
Absolutely, yes. But all I'm going to say is, yes, I did appear on The Fabulous Life of Britney Spears on MTV, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But the point is, these books, consider them the forgotten siblings, and there are so many of them. And actually, yes, we can wonder why, but for whatever reason, one book might take off and the previous ones just haven't. So I have a lot of those because it's where I normally start. But let's go to the one and only Gabrielle Zevin,
who is a beloved friend of this podcast.
Yeah, and we loved Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And actually, I feel a bit moronic. I keep talking about it, but I keep talking about it for a reason. However, after I'd read it, my immediate reaction was, I must go and read her other books. She's got about 8 on her backlist, and I've read 2 of them, both of which are amazing.
You ration these books.
I do ration them.
You do this with Kirsten Sittersfeld, with the icon that is Margaret Atwood we're going to talk about. I think it's a bit like what I do with Hilary Mantel. I have not read every book she's written. I've got them, but she's not with us.
We've got one today, don't we?
We do.
Very interesting one.
She's not with us. And I want to ration how much I can hear her very clear narrative voice.
You and me both. So A.J. Fikry, The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry was written by Gabrielle Zevin. It's a story. I mean, if you're a book lover, you're going to love it because it's set in a bookshop. There is a grumpy bookstore owner, A.J. Fikry, and he finds in his bookshop, he's recently widowed, and he finds in his bookshop a child has been left there. She's about 2 or 3. Her name is Maya. And suddenly his life is about to change. Meanwhile, a very keen and perky sales rep from a publishing house arrives at his bookshop to do her job. Their paths collide. And I'll say no more other than this book is obviously beautifully written. We know whose hand from whence it came, but the story, oh my goodness, it's wonderful. But the end is a sad end, as in there is stuff that happens. It's very, very emotional. I thought it was spectacular.
Would you consider it a romance book?
Yeah, no.
Are you a romance reader?
Stop trying to trick me. No, I wouldn't. It's just also, it's very different to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. But it's, in my mind, equally as wonderful. So high praise. And we both read Young Jane Young. I know you love that too. I gave that to you knowing how much you'd love this, which is one of Gabrielle Zevin's other backlist titles. It's a phenomenal book.
I have to just say on Young Jane Young that I was laughing from the first page. Everyone I've recommended it to has adored it.
Proper funny.
And it is very much inspired by the tale of Monica Lewinsky and the disparity within power of people in relationships, like a politician and an intern. There's such an acerbic wit in Zevin's writing, but it is pure, unadulterated joy in a book. And I have seen reviews of The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry describing it as a hug in a book.
Yeah, it's feel good, funny, but does deal with some really important themes as well. Yeah. So an equally brilliant backlist title. So that, we're doing the work for you.
The other authors that we have loved, I will just mention, so we mentioned Hilary Mantel. What is very, very little known is that Mantel wrote Giving Up the Ghost, which is a memoir reclaiming the story of her life and the ghosts that have come to haunt her from childhood dreams to the reality of family secrets. Her father just ran away, just mysteriously disappeared. And also an adulthood blighted by medical neglects. And I found this very hard to read because as someone with Crohn's, that is a disability that is regularly just dismissed. It's a stomachache, it's growing pains. I saw that with my siblings, my sister in particular. I have such a visceral memory of her curled up in the fetal position and no one understanding what was wrong. And she so beautifully articulates that loss of ownership over your body.
Because she had endometriosis.
She had endometriosis. Rachel Cusk says, a story of childhood that is also a piece of history, a masterpiece of wit. It is the most astounding memoir. It's really slim. I will say no more. Her voice is a clarion call throughout all of her books. It's the same person writing. It's her voice doesn't change as she depicts different characters, but this is her.
And what a voice she had.
This is so honestly her, and it is a memoir that I couldn't highly recommend enough.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've got the fiction and the non-fiction here in this category. You can go back and you can really, it's a bit like a treasure hunt when you go back through an author's backlist, because you just don't know what you're going to get. But one author, and this is, I guess, not so much a kind of completely unknown book, because it is known. And you may have heard of the author. Her name's Margaret Atwood.
I was like, I wonder which one you're going for. I sometimes
bring her up, but I'm bringing up Alias Grace as a kind of undiscovered gem, which I know I'm going to get people maybe taking issue with that. But I think the thing is, this book is historical fiction, and it's not what people know Atwood for traditionally. And when you think of Atwood, most people will think of sci-fi, which it's not. It's speculative fiction, dystopia, that kind of vibe. This is very different. And I would argue that this superb book, I absolutely adored it, read it over the summer.
What's it about? I know nothing about Alias Grace.
It's about a case about a woman called Grace who has been convicted for a crime. She's a servant and she's adamant she didn't do it. And you hear it from her perspective and others. It's absolutely phenomenal. You feel a bit like you're playing detective when you read it, like you're working it out. Like you can't trust her, but did she do it? Did she not? It's kind of like a kind of literary whodunit in a way.
Really? You would never think that Atwood would write something like that.
And that's the point. I think it's been overshadowed a lot by works that came after. So that's why I'm putting this one here. And I must mention a book that I just finished, which totally falls into this category. And I think I saw it on a podcast or a video on YouTube. It was an author, I think it was Nicola Dinan, who flagged this one.
I love her.
As a book that had been really important to her. And it's Min-Jin Lee's Free Food for Millionaires. Now, you may well have heard of Pachinko, which is her sort of massively celebrated book. It's on, there was a TV series on Apple. It's fantastic. But I absolutely love this one.
More than Pachinko?
Different. I'd say it's as good. So I guess that closes that category. But the point is, this is a really good place to start. And we're giving you these, I think a very excellent selection of these books. But there are so many more. So if you think of the authors that you love, just do a bit of digging or ask us. We may have done it for you. I probably have.
You did this with Curtis Sittenfeld.
Totally. And I still do.
You mentioned Nicola Dinan, the book Bellies, and her next book, Disappoint Me, but Bellies was the most beautiful exploration of a queer relationship and identity and longing and the concept of home. And I must mention it because I think it's a really important book, and it's very similar to a quiet contemporary masterpiece. And I use that phrase sparingly. Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson is a book that is so beautiful and lyrical. And anytime I mention it to someone, if they've read it, they cannot stop talking about it.
It's also quite short if you'd like something a bit shorter than the few I've selected before.
That's a really good point.
It's really slim.
It's under 150 pages. Yeah. It's got, it's got 90,000 ratings on Goodreads, but I never see this book online. And that's what really bothers me. There are so many books that you see regurgitated constantly. This is a proof, so you can't see the cover. I'm actually going to bend the front cover to show the beautiful cover.
That's kind of like me. Bending books and bending
I'm not allowed
pages.
To bend books.
Oh my goodness.
Two young people meet at a pub in southeast London. Both are Black British. Both won scholarships to private schools where they struggled to belong. And both are now artists, photographer and dancer, trying to make their mark in a city. Listen to this. Tentatively and tenderly, they fall in love. But they can still be torn apart by fear and violence. And the blurb says it's an achingly beautiful love story. And I actually think that's almost an underestimation of how powerful this book is. You read books that are 400-500 pages long and they feel like a slog. And then you find a book that's 150 pages that is more powerful than half the books you've read that are longer. And you just think, this is pure talent.
Yeah.
I can't explain how delicate it is. There's such defiance this morning. It says a lot about race. It says a lot about identity. It's actually very hypnotic. And if one person buys this book because of this podcast, we will have achieved what we set out to do.
We're done.
We can just go home now.
We can go home now. Well, I have another slim book, which really has barely any reviews on Goodreads. I did check. I think it's something shockingly small. Where did I put it? It's like 351. That's not a lot at all. And I would say that this book, which is called All the Living by C.E. Morgan, C.E. Morgan's written another book called The Sport of Kings, which I believe is much more well known. But I would say this book by C.E. Morgan was put into my hands by my then boss at HarperCollins, literally put into them. And I was told, you have to read this book. I think it's the most beautiful book you're ever going to read.
Wow.
And that still stands. This book could well be the reason why I'm so passionate about underrated books, because it's criminally underrated. I'm not going to check now, but I think I went to look at it on Amazon the other day just to see, like, you know, what do people say? I'd looked on Goodreads, I had a look. I'm not sure I don't know that you can buy it. I'm not sure unless you can only get it in Kindle, whatever, but I would look it up, and you must buy it and read it. It's explaining what it's about will not do it justice. It's set on a tobacco farm. There's Aloma and Oren, and they have to save the farm from drought. Oren's lost all his family in an accident and he's grieving, and they're here on this tobacco farm, which I know just sounds really kind of meh, but I promise you, I don't think I've come across writing like this since I read it. And it's just, I mean, it's positive.
What actually happens?
Okay, if I say not a lot, you're going to judge it, but not a lot does happen. And I remember when people asked me afterwards, what happens? Not a lot. Now, I am someone who is not obsessed with a book having to be plot driven. All I will say is, no, not a lot happens. Get over it. You've got to bloody read it. You've got to read it. This is it. In fact, this could be the episode embodied, because it's bizarre to me that there aren't people going on about how special this book is. It still is bizarre to me.
Are the characters very, very fleshed out? Is it the introspection?
They're so real. The tobacco fields are so real. The grief is so real. It's just, I'm done. If I can't sell it to you, I can't sell it to you. But and I have no reason to sell it to you. I'm just saying, read an underrated gem and you're welcome.
Well, a book, I'm going to actually read my favorite quote from this book before I tell you about it. This has 194 reviews on Goodreads.
Oh, you're like competing with me here, aren't we?
This book is written in verse. And the brilliance of a book written in verse is that every word has to be considered and exact, because you don't have the space to play, baby. This is it. You've got 3 words and then 3 words and then 3 words. Give me the confidence of a mediocre white man who thinks he has the right to a woman's work, her words, and womb, and everything else. You say that book has no plot. I say this book has all the plot, but all the prose. This is The Poet by Louisa Reed. It is female revenge. It is academia. It is propulsive. It is rage-fueled. And every single word is placed on the page as if it has been considered for hours. Emma is entangled in a toxic romance with her older professor, and she's losing control. Tom is idolized by everyone alike, and she is fighting for space, for recognition. And in their small Oxford home, he manipulates and undermines her every thought until he pushes her to the edge. It is not just a portrait of dysfunction. It is not just about a woman finding her voice. There's also a really important exploration of class and privilege, because Emma comes from a very working class background. And this is Sophie's copy. My copy is at home because I left it there, and I was kicking myself about that, because I wish you could see my copy. Every single page has 5 or 6 tabs. I used packs. I read it in one sitting. I didn't breathe. It's got people like Nikita Gill saying how phenomenal it is. It is, the preface is to all the women who want.
Oh, I love that.
It is the most brilliant book that no one has ever heard of. And I wish that I could tell everyone to read it that I meet. And I have been told by people oh yeah, you've mentioned it before, like rolling of the eyes, that can you get a grip?
It is weird, isn't it, when you think about why are these books not heard of? Like, I think it's obvious with some of the older books because perhaps, we have talked about viral books before, and you do get those older books that go viral, but some of them are just, I think they get forgotten. It's weird. And I think then you've got, publishing houses, there are, the big five, and so there are still titles that just are not the ones that get a lot of attention, but, they may get picked up on social media. They may not. I have a title here that is from a publishing house, and I'm going to be honest with you, like I did not know of this independent publishing house. It's called Charco Press. And this book, Homesick by Jennifer Croft, I mean, we met somebody who was involved in the publication when we were at a Women's Prize event.
Because wasn't it longlisted or shortlisted? Yes.
It definitely was on.
That's how it was raised to our attention, and that's how important some of these prizes can be.
Yeah, and we split the list between us, and I got Homesick, and I actually gave it a 5-star on Goodreads.
You never do.
We say I never do, but actually quite a lot of these books are the ones I've given 5 stars to. So that's saying something about this this episode, I guess, and the books that we're covering. But this is about identical twins, and they're Amy and Zoe, and their lives diverge as they get older. One of them moves abroad, the other one is not well, and it's just, I think, a really profound book about identity that is so, if I say simply written, I don't mean it like it's basic. It's not, it's profound. And it just goes to show, like, we think we know all the books out there, as in what's going on social media, what's hyped up. And a lot of people, there is this, and I hate to say it, but it is a bit of a herd mentality. You hear a book's doing amazing, it almost sets off a ripple effect. But actually, some of the very, very best books ever, past, present, just aren't getting that attention for whatever reason. So I feel like I'm a bit like making a bit of as if I'm standing to be MP of these books. But I just feel it is criminal that like a book like Homesick, like no one's really reading it. And it's just fabulous. So please read it.
It's interesting.
I don't have an agenda. I just want you to read these books.
So I'm going to shout out my friend Jenna, who works for Michael Joseph. And we were just talking this morning. Jenna, I love you. I don't know if she'll listen to this.
Hi, Jenna.
She and I were talking about the saturation, particularly because, it's just been the London Book Fair. There are so many titles competing for attention. Even if you've got a massive marketing spend, even if the author has got a social media presence. And actually what we're seeing is a trend that books are being picked up that are being suggested by YouTubers, by Instagrammers, by BookTokers, and people are saying, well, wait a minute, is anyone looking at the quality of this writing? Not to disparage anyone from whatever background, right? I'm sure there are many people that have big platforms that are beautiful writers, but actually we all can't be everything. And if you are, someone whose career is predicated on content creation, there will be hundreds, if not thousands of people that have spent years on writing courses and English literature degrees who are struggling to get an agent, and then you get the agent, then you get the publishing deal, and then you're trying to fight for space. Sophie, how many books come through our doors?
I can't hazard a guess, but it's
20 to 30 a week.
Amount. Yeah, it's about that.
And some of them are very formulaic because everyone's trying to be the next Fourth Wing or A Court of Thorns and Roses, right? Because that's captured the attention of millions.
I normally refer those to you.
You do, and I'm grateful to you. and so there's such an ever-decreasing space. And that is why we feel so passionately about these books. And I mean, the next book that I'm going to talk about, which is Notes on an Execution by Dania.
What a book. I think one of my husband's favourite ever books. He thought it was fantastic.
And he's not a reader.
No, he's not. But he loved that one.
That's so interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it did better in America than it did in England.
I think that could be said maybe for some of these that, it may depend on where you're listening, but arguably they're not that widely known.
This is a chilling portrait of womanhood. It is set in America. It is based on a serial killer. Now, come on, girls, true crime girls.
Absolutely.
If anyone hasn't picked this up, this is for you. But actually, I think there are so many men and women that would enjoy this book that are not readers.
Because it's got all the angles.
It's a thriller. It's got very deep psychiatric introspection.
And a real feminist aspect to it, right?
Absolutely. This is the story of a serial killer who's about to die. He's on death row, and it's a look at the families that he impacted, the relationships, and the detective who was hot on his trail, devoted to bringing bad men to justice. What I would say about Notes on an Execution, which I could talk about for an hour and I promise I won't, is that as someone in the criminal law space, I had never really reflected on the death penalty because it is not a part of our legal system.
Should we just talk about what we think about the death penalty? That could just be a casual tangent that we could go into.
It's not really a tangent. The Notes on Execution is literally about that. And it really provokes a lot of thought about what is the value of a life and the concept of an eye for an eye, and why is someone evil by nature versus nurture.
Oh, I love that
And,
one.
you know, the detective is struggling for space as a woman in a man's world. The women that were killed are struggling to be heard, their voices through the lens of their
And isn't there
families.
like the mother of a victim as well? I mean, there are so many angles in that book.
It is so deftly plotted.
Full of perspectives.
It's actually unbearably good. I think I read it in one night, Soph, and it's not very long, but
they do. Those books trouble me in that they are so brilliant, and they're recent books. And I know that there's a lot of books out there, and I know it's hard to get space, but you just feel like, why do people not know about this as much? It's just so brilliant. I think it's way better than some of the ones that are touted about all over the internet.
And actually, I think so many readers of like Frida McFadden or, you know, Ashley Audrain, who wrote The Push, is on here. There are so many thriller writers. And, you know, they produce stuff at different levels for different markets, but this cuts across them because I can think of some friends who love a very propulsive, easy Frida McFadden. They read it on a plane or on a beach. If they're not really readers, that's when they'll read. They'll pick up a book then on holiday. And I've said to them, I'm begging you, read Notes on an Execution. It is that elevated prose.
Didn't we bump into, I'm not going to shout names on the podcast, but no, I was with another friend on a Saturday morning walking my dog, and I bumped into someone who follows our page, and we'd recommended that book on a reel, and she was in the middle of it, and she said, I am forcing this upon everyone I know. I can't believe I didn't know about that book. And that is the truth.
Such an undiscovered
word
gem.
of a lie. It really is.
Britt Bennett's also given it a blurb. I don't think that books should ever be judged on who has given a quote, but there are some books that if there's a person on the cover, you're pointing.
I'm pointing at a blurb that you actually, I do kind of judge. It's another episode. Do you judge a book by a blurb? By its blurb? Not
Sorry,
its cover?
if Hilary Mantel is on the cover of a book, I'm reading it.
Yeah, but yes, and she really
or
was
Madeline
so generous.
Miller.
Yeah, Madeline Miller. Okay, so Emily St. John Mandel, front of this one, remarkable and profoundly moving. Ordinary Love by Marie Rutkowski. Now,
you loved this book.
I cannot. I am actually lost for words when it comes to this. I sat, it's not like me to sort of literally sit and read a book in one sitting. That's totally more you vibes. And I actually try, certainly with longer books, what I tend to do is I tab every 50 pages and try and do it that way. Now, this book is regular size. It's probably about 340 pages. This is how it starts, just to describe it. There is no such thing as an ordinary love story. So this is about two women, Emily and Jen, who are friends as children. And it is when they fell in love as teenagers. It was an incredible connection that they had, but for whatever reason, life took them away from each other, and they reunite 20 years on, living incredibly different lives. So Jen is now an Olympic runner. She's basically like a mega celeb in the sporting world. She's kind of like on the front of all these athletics magazines. And Emily now lives a life that, for all intents and purposes, would be described as utterly picture perfect. She lives in Manhattan. She is very, very financially comfortable. Her husband and young children are picture perfect too. It all seems wonderful until you scratch beneath the surface and you realize it's not. They meet again, Emily and Jen, and The rest is what you'll read about in the book. Now, I guess on one level, you might look at this as, oh, it's a sort of, you've heard these stories before. You know, people meet, they come apart, back together.
The Lovers, very similar to that.
Yeah. But this blew my mind. And I'm not using that phrase with any element of exaggeration. I thought this was so beautifully written. I read it in one sitting, not because I had nothing to do. I had plenty to do. I just literally could not put it down. And it's a book that came out really recently. I think it was, I don't know, it was first published last year. So this is a new book. And for whatever reason, it has not gone crazy online. There aren't many reviews on it in Goodreads. I think it was about 700 odd. And I'm telling you, I'm going to make your life better because you're going to read this book now and you're going to agree with me and you're going to be like, how the hell did I not know about it?
There's so many books in this section. And I'm looking at my books and the non-fiction is calling my name, but I'm thinking, what other fiction books did we want to mention?
Oh my gosh, Lisa C. Okay, this actually, I've got with me Lady Tan's Circle of Women, an absolutely beautiful book, but it is not the one that I want to talk about. I'm bringing it as a stand-in because the one I want to talk about, I actually think I picked up in one of those like hotel libraries where you pick up a book and then you leave it. And I grabbed it there. So The Island of Sea Women.
Oh, I loved that book,
I think that was written, I'm not sure how long before this one, but it's a total masterpiece. It's set in South Korea and it's about a group of female divers, and two of them are brought together, but they have incredibly different backgrounds and their friendship is totally tested by their class differences. And it's just kind of, it spans over a pretty long period of time. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it because, again, actually, I think one of the main elements of why I adored it as I was reading it was because I had that total buzz in me, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'd never heard of this book. And it's so amazing.
And it's very immersive. I have read that. And I honestly wasn't in London when I was reading it. I was with them under the water. Yeah. And there's a lot in there about family and duties and obligations.
And diving, though. You learned so much about what it is to be a diver and in an all-female diving collective. Like, so fascinating in South Korea.
But very rustic. I mean, they're diving for their livelihood. They're not, and there's dangers that include, and it's a very, very unusual and old way of life that harkens back to their traditions and cultures. And there's a lot in there about family structure and what was going on in South Korea, which I had not ever learnt about. And yet we posted that. And we got back so many comments.
But actually, and we will come to it, I asked on Instagram for other people's undiscovered gems. I mean, I'll say a few of them now.
When God Was a Rabbit by our best friend Sarah Woman of all time.
Yes, but Lisa C most definitely came up. Yes. The Island of Sea Women was a real big one in that. Yes. And I was really heartened to see that, that it's a book that lots of people have come across.
Another one that I think was featured more in the American press than the British press, but most certainly is not one that traverses the internet continually. Mm-hmm. I loved that book. What other books came up? I think Still Life, but we've talked about that ad nauseum.
A lot of these, I'm going to be honest, I had never heard of a lot of these. Someone had mentioned The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult. So,
that's a massive author though.
Yeah, but again, it could be like section 1. It's just the forgotten siblings. Hello, Jamie Lynn. She's not so much forgotten. Hello, the brother of Brittany. I don't know your name. Think it's possibly Jason. I will check. Why Fish Don't Exist, which apparently long-listed for the Women's Prize, but I don't know when.
Desperate. I'm desperate to read that. Desperate.
Okay, well, I'll put that on your list.
Non-fiction, and it's all about the fact that, like, conceptually and scientifically, fish don't fit in any category of animal. They shouldn't exist.
Oh,
I have got that.
Read the book to find out more. Up at the Villa by Somerset Maugham, which is obviously an older book. Yeah. Some 40 Tales from the Afterlives. Indian Country at the Edge of the Woods by Catherine Bromwich, a story of a woman's self-exile. The Women on Platform 2.
Never heard.
Which actually a few people said.
Really?
Yeah.
So
The Happiest Man Alive, Waiting for a Party by Vesna Main. I haven't heard of most of these books. So I do wonder if you listening, have you heard of what we're talking about? Who knows?
I know. So I'm going to mention 3 fiction writers and then we're going to move on to non-fiction. So, and I think actually there's a reason that I've grouped them together. We go to a lot of literary events. We speak to a lot of people in the industry. And what I find really interesting is that there are
the tea.
There are certain writers that are so famous in literary circles and no one else really talks about them.
That is so much a category in its own right. It's like the writers that writers read, the writers that editors read, the writers that the agents read.
Okay, my 3 authors are Lauren Groff, who I would die for, A.K. Blakemore, who I would die for, and Tom Crew, who I would die for. So first of all, if you read In Memoriam and you loved it, then pick up The New Life, because it did not get as much hype as it deserved. I think it actually won an award though, so it's probably a bit unfair to say underrated because it was
widely known.
It's not widely known at all.
It's not.
This is the story of 2 Victorian marriages, 2 dangerous love affairs, 1 extraordinary partnership. It is just steeped in atmosphere. John and Henry decide to write a revolutionary book together intended to challenge convention and law about homosexuality. And it's very physical. It's a very physical book. You really feel like you're in the characters' bodies, feeling
Are the characters
achings.
very real?
Oh my God, they walk amongst us. They walk amongst us. Lauren Groff might be wider known in America. She's an American writer. She's written books like Arcadia, Fates and Furies, and Matrix.
I loved Matrix.
Oh, it was about nuns. Oh my God, you've got to read it. The one in front of me is it's called The Vaster Wilds. Look at that. Incredible.
And all her covers are beautiful.
Beautiful. This is about a servant girl that escapes from a settlement. She carries nothing with her but her wits, and she is in the wild. And there's a fantastical element to this, but you feel the wind, you feel the fear, you feel the trees rustling. I cannot explain to you how transportive and immersive this book is. It's actually quite frightening how good of a writer she is. You have to read The Vaster Wilds.
Yeah, I don't know why I haven't, but
there's too many books.
I know, there's too many books.
The third writer is A.K. Blakemore. She has won awards. This is about witches.
Well, I'll just go home then, shall I?
She has written for the London Review of Books. So she won the Desmond Elliott Award for her first novel. This is historical fiction.
Hi, our audience might not know how much you love a witch.
Oh my God.
I mean, maybe you are a witch. I don't know. Hi has something very witchy.
When people tell me that I'm a witch, I find it so complimentary. There are sometimes things that I just know. People have sometimes started chatting to me and I say something to them like, oh, because that happened. And they say, no one has ever told me that before.
Noted.
There are family members that I'm convinced are witches without, not in a bad way. They just know things. Like I'm walking down the road at 3 a.m. and they're like, oh, you outside. Sorry, how could you possibly know that? They just heard me say it. So the Manningtree Witches is set in England in 1643. Parliament is battling the king. The war between the Roundheads and the Cavaliers rages. Puritanical fervour has gripped the nation and the hot terror of damnation burns black in every shadow. Sorry, she writes better than most people breathe.
Yeah.
It's really quite horrendous. It plunges you into the fever and the menace of the English witch trials, the mistrust, the betrayal that ran amok.
I feel I would like that.
It's so unsettling. And it's so brilliant.
Who published it?
Granta. It's phenomenal.
One to add to the list.
So A.K. Blakemore has got a new book coming out. And it was so interesting because on Instagram, the only people posting about it and storying feverishly excited were people that write for the London Review of Books and people that write in the Guardian or do you know what I mean? Or the Times or are really in that literary sphere, but her writing is so accessible. Like she has a cult following.
I was going to say that. I wonder why, if her writing is so accessible, it's hard. We just don't know why certain
15,000 ratings on Goodreads, 1.9 reviews. It's not widely known. Sorry. And it should be.
Yeah.
I would like.
Well, you've made the case for it.
Readers of Odessa Meshfag must read A.K. Blakemore.
Yeah.
You know, how massive is My Year of Rest and Relaxation?
Huge.
Why is this not in the same category? Sorry, it's really annoying me.
Yeah, well, it's quite. It is quite a frustrating topic, this one, because there's not necessarily any rhyme or reason as to why. With some of them, yes, but others you're just like, I do not get it.
Yeah,
I do not get it. Non-fiction wise, I mean, I love a bit of non-fiction, as you know.
Yes.
And one of the non-fiction books that I loved that was huge was Empire of Pain, which was very much
but that is not underrated.
It is not underrated, but I'll tell you what is underrated higher is The Forgotten Girls by Monica Potts. Now, this is, I mean, I actually contacted Monica Potts after I read this book because I wanted to just talk to her about it. It made me think of Empire of Pain and also Demon Copperhead. It was almost like a real Demon Copperhead because it's about two friends who grow up. They're very gifted and they're called Monica and Darcy, and they had this real shared love of learning and school, and they had this kind of very much of a kind of similar childhood and a great bond between them. But one went to university and essentially achieved her dreams. The other one stayed behind with many of the others in their class, so remained in the Ozarks and stayed there. Monica goes on to become a journalist. She's the writer of this book. And she went back to where she's from to look into the fact that the life expectancy of women from that place has declined shockingly. And she wanted to find out why. And on that journey, she reconnects with Darcy, that friend from her classroom, to find out what's happened to her and the others around her. So Darcy has essentially, with all her promise, become a statistic, a single mother of two, totally addicted to meth, jobless. And Monica is very much aware that she could have shared that fate.
Wow.
So this book explores Monica returning, looks at why, how, all of the questions surrounding that. And I just thought it was fascinating, not only as a study in and of itself, but also that personal element to it. This is Monica's life. And I just was completely, I was really moved by it, actually, really genuinely moved. It was insightful, hugely well-researched, but incredibly personal. And yeah, another one that I think, you know, whether you're a non-fiction reader or not, I don't think it's possible for this book not to move you, actually. I really don't.
Non-fiction can hold so many spaces. So you've got The Sleeping Beauties there, which is the story of refugee children that slept for months
mainly
and
in Sweden, who were found to have fallen asleep for months, I think maybe even a year or so at a time. And it's by Suzanne O'Sullivan, who I believe is a neurologist, and she went to Sweden to research this stuff. And it does read brilliantly. But I will say, I find it a bit annoying when it comes to nonfiction. This is my personal gripe. When people say, oh, this nonfiction book, it's so great, it reads like fiction. And I'm guilty of doing that too. And actually, I don't think it's about whether it reads like fiction. It just reads brilliantly. We're not saying it's a novel. We're just saying it's a brilliant piece of work. Why does it? I guess it's because people are put off, aren't they, by nonfiction? They sort of think, oh, it's going to be too serious, dense, maybe a bit boring. Perhaps I'm generalizing, but I actually think that that's wrong. And when you find the right piece of nonfiction, you'll be in.
I disagree. I disagree with you.
What you think we should say it reads like fiction?
I think that is a reference to propulsivity, if that's a word. It reads like a novel. Don't they mean it reads like a thriller? It reads like a propulsive.
I think people say that as a way to convince people to read it.
Yeah, because there's much less non-fiction readers than readers.
I just think it just should read as a great book in and of itself. It doesn't have to be like fiction.
Maybe they mean it's so astonishing that it reads like, okay.
We can agree to disagree. It's fine.
So the books, the one that I spoke about at the beginning as like a life-changing book is coming, but I just have to mention a book called The Premonitions Bureau, which, let's be honest, I don't know how many people have read it. Listen to this. It's written by Sam Knight, who's a journalist. And it's about 1960s, a British scientific experiment led by Dr. John Baker into whether they could scientifically research and plot premonitions.
So weird.
So they looked at hundreds upon hundreds of premonitions and looked at whether they could be preventing future calamities if they were almost utilized.
But there were some really weird ones, weren't there? Now I can't remember the examples, but some of them were quite unbelievable.
That read so well. It had Hilary Mantel on the cover, which is why I picked it up. That's honestly the truth. And if anyone is, not a fiction reader, that's the kind of book that I think so many people would like. I actually recommended it to a friend from university who is not a reader and only reads very serious nonfiction. I said, you've got to read this. And he thought it was hysterical, but brilliant and funny.
Yeah. I think sometimes with nonfiction, when you're going into that much of a niche, you know that the author is going to know what the hell they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Because they've really probed in there.
I love I love that depiction. It's like the equivalent of a random internet deep dive at 3 a.m.
Some of these books are that.
Yeah.
And hello, we love a bit of that.
We love a bit of that. We come to Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is actually a book that is very personally important to me. Listen to the back. You took away my worth, my privacy, my energy, my time, my safety, my intimacy, my confidence, my own voice until today. It actually gives me shivers.
Yeah. Well, because that was such a seminal book in terms of Chanel Miller coming out with her identity, because she had been unknown, hadn't she? Prior to that, her name.
Exactly. She was known to the world as Emily Doe. There was a case concerning one Brock Turner, and the outrage that was caused.
Was it at Princeton?
Stanford. He was sentenced to just 6 months in county jail after he was found sexually assaulting a woman on Stanford's campus. And there was a huge ramifications around that sentencing.
He came from a very wealthy family, didn't he? There was that element.
The judge referenced his swimming capabilities.
Yes, that was what was so messed up.
It was outrageous. Now, there was a victim impact statement written by this anonymous victim
Emily Doe.
Emily Doe, as she was called. And it went viral. It was viewed by 11 million people within 4 days. It was translated globally. It was read on the floor of Congress. It inspired changes in Californian law and the recall of the judge in that case. Thousands wrote to her to say that she had given them the courage to share their own experiences. She reclaimed her identity by telling her story. This will impact anyone that reads it because she looks at the way that we think about sexual assault, our beliefs about what is acceptable. She was questioned about what she was wearing. She was wearing a cardigan and like sweatpants. She's actually an astonishingly gifted writer, and she takes you through step by step her memories of the lead up to that day, and then the impact on the case
and the impact on her life and what that had done.
But also just what it means to be a woman and the concerns of walking down the street at night, worrying who's going to be behind you and trying to, she was at a party. She would have been interested in a guy potentially if there had been a normal situation. Yeah. And then, you reflect on every step that you took and whether you're culpable in any of it. And then you also, and what I loved about this book is she takes you to the moment where her statement goes viral. Have you ever thought about what it must be to be in the eye of a storm?
Yes.
Like you are on every
one post or one silly video.
Oh no, but think about like the Coldplay cam.
Oh my God.
That affair.
Oh my God, you cannot
anyone
make
who
that
doesn't
up.
see that, at a Coldplay concert, the cam that focused on random people in the crowd, focused on a couple quite ensconced within each other. And then they just break apart.
One duct.
Right?
They feeded.
Like something had been thrown at, like a grenade. And then Chris Martin makes some insouciant comment like, oh, hope they're not having an affair, which they were. Imagine being those people on that day or the morning after.
Yeah.
You live Chanel's life, but you live Chanel's life. You she's going viral. No one knows who she is. She's getting thousands of messages. She's traumatized. And she realizes that this is her moment to kind of take back control. There's a book called The Five by a historian called Hallie Rubenhold, which looks at the victims of Jack the Ripper and makes you think about them in a different lens and how they're perceived and portrayed as sex workers when really there's no clear historical source that they were, bar one potentially. And she references this book in her gut punch of a conclusion where she says, nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
And I just can't tell you how many people have read Know My Name because of me and have loved every page.
I think certainly here in the UK, it just isn't one that tons of people have read.
It's much more well known in America.
In America because of the case, because that case was really widely covered. And this came after. I remember the spread in Vanity Fair and just reading it and being so disgusted that this had happened in the way that it had. But I guess the point is, there are so many out there that just haven't got the hype that they've deserved. And they're not just great books because they haven't got the hype. These books are as great as some of the greatest books that you will know about.
I know you were talking about the Bronte sisters and the Forgotten Anne.
My God, I know. I'm going to put my hands up here. I knew there was like a third Bronte sister. I did know that, but I knew nothing much of her at all. I don't know that I knew she'd written much in the slightest until I'd read Wuthering Heights recently. Still haven't seen the movie. But you know, Anne Bronte. I mean, I actually had a look at what she'd written. I hadn't heard of some, like The Tenant of Wildfell.
Oh, that's so good.
Agnes Grey.
There's so many. I mean, we are going to do another episode, potentially, not on classics alone, because we always want to ensure a lot of like range. But in terms of the classics, Perfume, like,
you love that book.
Perfume, which is the story of a serial killer trying to distill the scent of innocence, is on the curriculum in Germany. We got loads of comments about that.
Learn in the wrong
country.
There
are school kids reading it, and it's so well written. I don't feel like anyone knows about it. Is it
violent or like gruesome?
But not gratuitously.
Fine for school.
Oh my goodness, The Last Man by Mary Shelley. Everyone only thinks she wrote one book.
Yeah.
She did not. That's an amazing flipping book.
Yeah.
And in the fantasy space, I just have to shout out because of Jenna, that there is a book called Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is huge in America and no one has heard about here. And now it's just gaining huge hype. It's about Carl and his ex-girlfriend's cat. Wow. Survivors of a mining industry after an alien takeover.
Oh, that sounds a bit much for me. I don't know.
Oh my
Maybe
God,
it'll be okay.
If you read that book, I will die laughing.
Oh yeah, and what would you read? We've been here before, Kaya. We've been here before. When you tell me to read something, I go and read it.
I'm not telling you to read that. I'm reading it though. I'm reading it now. She's sending me a copy. I would say to people that are like, okay, we've listened to this episode. We've got tons of, where would you start?
That is a really hard question. But I would say if I was going to go into, I'm going to pick two. Sorry, but like I've said so many.
Gotta be Ordinary Love.
It's going to be All the Living by C.E. Morgan and Ordinary Love by Marie Rutkowski. Okay. Those are my two.
I don't think I can have two.
No, you can't pick more. We're saying two. Go on, two.
Definitely Open Water.
Did you just move Hilary to one side? I saw you do that. Ouch, that's brutal. That's brutal. I'm so sorry, Hilary. I'm sorry she did that. Okay, come on. Tell us.
Really horrible.
What about the poet? No, Know My Name. That's you. That's you in a book.
Open Water and Know My Name.
Okay. So I would, listen.
Open Water, because, I mean, Sophie,
it's astonishingly beautiful.
It's so wonderful. And I just think this is a writer that needs a lot of hype. There's a lot of classism in publishing. And, you know, there's a lot of voices that don't get heard. And I'm very aware of that privilege. And I just think this is a book that
it's a beautiful book.
It's so short.
Anything we're offering to you here, we genuinely feel will benefit you. And I would love to know if you come away from this podcast and read any of these books. I think more than any of our previous ones, I really, really want to know what you think.
Yes.
Because I really feel very attached to these titles. I feel like almost we're letting you in on a bit of a secret. So please read one, all, however many you want.
All of them, all immediately.
All of them, and let us know what you think. Because, and as I said it before, but like, you are welcome. You are welcome.
Imagine if people don't like them.
Well, you're going to like some of them. You just are.
Have to. Thank you for listening.
We'll see you next time.